You're listening to Popcorn Unscripted,
the podcast where we dive into movies and TV shows with no scripts, no filters, just real talk and plenty of popcorn.
I'm Bailey.
And I'm Dylan.
We're here to talk about everything we love
And love to hate
in pop culture. So grab your popcorn,
sit back,
and let's get this show started. Gladiator isn't just a movie. It's an experience. It's dusty, it's bloody, it's poetic, and it's packed with some of the most intense, emotional performances I've ever seen. And that's a fact. Mainly because I wanted Commodus to die throughout the entire movie, from the very first moment you meet him all the way to the end. And Joaquin Phoenix did amazing portraying Commodus, because I literally wanted him to die, like, so bad. Even throughout the entire movie, I was like, somebody please, all you have to do is, like, either shoot an arrow, shank him, like, just do something, just get rid of him. Like, why could the Senate not just come up with the plan to just absolutely murder him? Are they just, like, that naive? Are they just, you know, like, why couldn't they just have planned for Commodus to die and then everything would have been fine? Maximus wouldn't have had to die. It's like, okay, so I had watched this movie twice in 2024, last year, to prepare for Gladiator 2, which came out last year, mainly because of a certain somebody that was in the movie, but I digress. So, remembering how I watched this movie, when I watched this movie for the first time, here's a little fun fact that's, I am the same age as this movie. I'm actually a few months older than this movie, because this movie was released in May, and I was born in February of 2000. So me and this movie, we're the same age, dog. We're the same age. Let that sink in for you, people. Let that sink in for you. I bet some of you remember going and watching this in theaters. Yeah. I was born during the year this movie came out, so let that sink in for you. So there's that sort of personal connection to this movie. This is my third time watching it, and this movie is amazing. I will give it that. There is so much detail put into this movie, and this movie, I'm sure, was filmed with a massive scale, because if you look at the scale that they did for Gladiator 2, you can imagine the scale that they did for Gladiator. Like, I'm sure Gladiator 2 was probably bigger scale than Gladiator was, but for the early 2000s time period, Gladiator was filmed probably on, like, the biggest stage, like, ever. It's like, I don't know a lot of the behind-the-scenes kind of stuff, but yeah, I just really wanted Commodus to die, like, the entire time. I was just like, can somebody please just shank him? Like, he's throwing a little tantrum, and he kills his father because of said little tantrum, and then he puts on games like a child, and it's like, please. No, please. It really makes you wish that Maximus would have done what Marcus Aurelius had asked of him, and then none of this would have happened. Honestly, if that did happen, let's think of an alternate timeline here. So, let's say that Maximus did take up on Marcus Aurelius's wishes. I think what would have happened is that Marcus Aurelius, all of them would have went back to Rome. Of course, Commodus would not be happy about it. Or actually, no, I take that back. So, I think Commodus would have still killed his father. But I also think that maybe Maximus, of course he would have taken that, well, yeah, he would have taken him up on his offer. And I'm sure Marcus Aurelius would have told the soldiers what was going on, right? if Maximus would have, or actually, no, I take that back too. I think if Maximus would have taken him up on that offer, Marcus Aurelius would have made like a big announcement. And Commodus would have been standing there thinking that he was going to announce his name, but instead he announces Maximus. Okay? So, he announces Maximus, then what? Okay? So, Maximus is in charge. But, I still think Commodus would have confronted his father, still ended up killing his father and making it look like his sickness would have killed him. And then I think Commodus would have kissed Maximus's butt and tried to get on his good side. And then I would say at some point down the line he backstabs him and calls him a traitor and then throws him into the games, into the Colosseum. Which, to be fair, that's kind of what happens in the second movie with General Marcus Acacius. So, yeah, that's kind of like a similar story. So, but the way that they had done it, I think was great. I liked how all of it really played out. And honestly, I'm not really sure of the whole timeline because I think this whole movie takes place over several years up until Maximus makes it back to Rome to fight in the Colosseum. So, to kind of take you through the story, so we meet Maximus as a war hero. He's honorable, loyal, and he's just ready to return home. He just wants to go home and be a farmer man. He just wants to go home to his wife and his kid. That's all he wants. And then, of course, everything is ripped from him in a matter of, well, not minutes, but in a matter of time, it's all ripped from him. And it's just absolutely heartbreaking and tragic because you really want this man to have like just a single like actual victory that he won himself and that he didn't necessarily have to, I guess, well, I guess I can't say that because he fought in all these wars and bloodshed and stuff, but I digress. But this movie does quickly turn from a victory into a tragedy, and I think the point, as I was talking about earlier, I think the point where it quickly turned into a tragedy is when Maximus turned down the offer from Marcus Aurelius, Caesar. I think that's the point of no return, because Maximus had turned him down. And obviously, since Commodus kills him, there's no one there to vouch for him. Like, I mean, of course, Caesar can't speak for himself because he's dead. But I do think Lucilla had, I think she knew what Commodus has done, which is why she slapped him, super hard. But she knew she couldn't do anything, so therefore she kissed his hand. She knew that the job is done, the deed is done, there's nothing else she could do. And then, of course, because Commodus is so freaking petty, he sends the general off, and, I can't remember exactly, but I think he ends up, saying he is a traitor or something along those lines. Ultimately, he ends up sending Maximus to go be killed. He's take him and kill him, essentially. And then, of course, Commodus, still being petty, ends up sending soldiers to Maximus's estate and kills all of his, slaves. Kills all of his slaves. Kills his wife and his child. Has them strung up on nailed to crosses. Which actually, Commodus does say that at the end that they were nailed to crosses, but they were actually hung. hung from one of the things. Because there was no crosses there. So I don't know where Commodus had gotten crosses from. But anyway, I digress. There's a continuity error, I guess. But Russell Crowe's performance in this movie is absolutely incredible. Now, I never really watched much of Russell Crowe's work. I think this was probably the first thing I had ever seen him in, personally. And so, but his performance from being a high-class general to being a slave and then being a fighter, a gladiator, like the ultimate gladiator, is like one of the best performances you could probably ever have had. So Maximus finds his wife and son dead in their villa or domus or whatever it's called that place is, his farm. He buries them, and he just lays there with them. I honestly think he had the intent of just starving himself to death and just dying from dehydration and starvation. I think he had the full intent of just laying there with his wife and son and just dying there. But ultimately, people came and picked him up, scooped him right up, and pretty much healed him back to health and made him a fighter. Or not really a fighter, but he turned into a slave slash fighter. He became a slave fighter for entertainment. And so these scenes are absolutely brutal. And I'm going to talk about a specific thing really quick. When they find him and you see that cut on his arm, I love this attention to detail, but it makes me gag every time I see it. It gives me chills. It makes me rub my own arm just thinking about it. But you look at that cut on his arm and it's got freaking maggots in it. It's disgusting. It's infected. It's nasty. I'm just like, oh my gosh, that's amazing work, but kind of thing. I was just like, nope, nope, nope. But again, getting back to where I was, these types of places were definitely brutal, especially on the slaves' half, because it's just, it's just crazy. And honestly, one of the first battles is in the slave arena. That's what I'm going to call it, because I think that's essentially what it is a slave arena. And that's, I think, the first time Maximus shows what he can do. Because, I don't think he really wanted to die. He wanted to die, but he didn't want to die. Because I think he finally comes out of his grief in that moment, and he's like, okay, if I don't do something, these other people will die for no good reason. And Maximus, being the good man that he is, he starts to help, therefore gaining the name Spaniard. He becomes the Spaniard. He's a big, mighty Spaniard now. And nobody knows his name, which he wanted to keep that way up until he got into the arena. And he grew very, very popular very quickly. Even the people of Rome knew who he was before he even got there, if I remember correctly. And it was that first fight in the Colosseum where Maximus shows who he is. Or at least I'm pretty sure that's his first fight. That shows who he is, because I think that's what starts the whole thing with Commodus, is that he goes down and he's like, show me your face. Show me your face. He wanted to know who he was. And of course, Maximus, being big and mighty as he is, reveals himself. He's like, okay, you want to know who I am? I'm your worst nightmare. He doesn't actually say that, but I think that's what he was thinking when he removed his helmet. I'm just like, you want to know who I am? I'm your worst nightmare. I'm the ghost. Like, he's the ghost of Commodus's past, because he essentially had him killed, quote unquote killed. And so that was a whole thing. And so all of that kind of goes on. Commodus tries to kill him in the Colosseum to no avail. So, as time goes on, Commodus then takes it upon himself to fight Maximus. Now, before that, Maximus does try to make his escape to go and get his men. But, ultimately, Commodus got in the way of that, figured out what was happening, and got in the way of that, and, what's the word? Fouled his plans? Stopped his plans, essentially. He stopped his plans. And so, then, Maximus is strung up, and of course, Commodus, being the petty emperor that he is, stabs Maximus in order to gain the upper hand. But, as we know now, that didn't really work out in his favor, did it? You cannot keep a good soldier down, especially when he's fighting for the betterment of Rome. And that was Marcus Aurelius's last moments, because it wasn't until Maximus had heard what Rome had turned into that he was like, I should have went with his wishes and had done it. And I think that was one of the regrets that Maximus had, is that he didn't go through with it, and he decided to be a little bit selfish and want to go home to his wife and child. But then again, you can't blame him for wanting to be a little bit selfish, because he had been through absolute hell, and, it's a whole thing. But I was, like, cheering when Commodus died. I was just like, yes! Finally! He's dead! And then Maximus falls, and I'm like, no! No! Because I hate it when the main character dies in a movie, because it doesn't feel satisfying. But I will say this, for this movie specifically, Maximus dying did feel satisfying, because he did get to go home to his wife and child in the end. And so it's a bittersweet ending, and I want to talk about the symbolism of the afterlife too. So in the beginning, when he's like going through the fields and stuff, and he's seeing all of this stuff, it's bright colors. Now, color is used quite a bit, or not quite a bit, but it's used like lightly in this movie, and it's something that I noticed on this rewatch too. Is that whenever Maximus was around, there was bright colors. There was bright sunlight, everything. There was bright colors. And then when Commodus finally came into Rome as the new emperor, everything was like gray and gloom and white. It was like, there was like hardly any color at all. But if you also look at Commodus's complexion as well, throughout most of the film, he is not the tannest individual. He is very, very pale, like ghostly pale, which I think that was probably intentional. And then of course you had Maximus, who, like, he's a soldier. Of course he has a great tan, right? He kind of has to, but that also translates to the afterlife, because as I said at the beginning, it all looks bright and peaceful and everything. And then as Maximus goes into the afterlife there at the end, it's all like dull colors. It's all dull colors. It's kind of weird once you look at it. It's like, well, why did they choose dull colors at the end and not bright colors, and it not be swapped? I just thought that was an interesting thing of it. But again, this movie has so much symbolism in it, you would have to watch it, I think, a million times over to even catch it all, if I'm going to be completely honest. But this movie isn't just about swords and lions and tigers and whatever have you. It's about power, legacy, and one man refusing to lose his soul until he knew that he had done what is best for the people of Rome, because he was in their shoes. He was a great mighty general, and then he was put into the shoes of a slave and a commoner. He was put into those shoes, and he knew what these people were really going through, and he needed to fix it. He knew he needed to fix it. He knew he needed to go through the wishes of Marcus Aurelius. He knew he had to do that in order to bring honor into a corrupt world. And I would say Maximus's grief from losing his wife and child is really what drove him to make things right. Because I think he knew in the end, he was going to die. And that was his ultimate goal, was to die so he could then go back home to his wife and child. So yeah. And then, of course, again, Commodus as the cowardly villain, desperate for validation, desperate for love. Now, I want to talk about his relationship with Lucilla for a second, because anytime I saw them on screen, I had in the back of my head Sweet Home Alabama playing, because my mind was just screaming incest, and I was just like, no, absolutely not. Like, I wanted to backhand him. I'm like, no, bad, no, it's bad. And it is actually bad, because if you take two siblings and you try to make a pure family, which it is proven throughout history that people that have done this have taken two children from the same mother and father, and then bred them, that any children after that is going to be deformed and, like, not look right. Like, they're going to be deformed, they're going to have, like, different sort of health issues, that, like, it's like, yeah, nah. I would not want that for any child. Even though those types of things happen anyway with people with issues and health issues and things like that. So it is a concern for anybody. But when you try to make a pure family, any child after that point is just, it's not, no. I think if Lucilla and Commodus had a child, I think something would definitely be wrong with that child. Because after Commodus dies, I actually don't even, I don't remember, I haven't really watched Gladiator 2 since last year, I don't think, so I don't really remember how Emperor Geta and Carcalla got the throne. I don't even remember how they were next in line to get the throne. But they were, and they were nuts. Both of them were, so, you know. I think Rome just had it bad back then. I think Rome just needs a break. But it's, this movie I would definitely say is a timepiece. And seeing as I was born in the same year as this movie, last year was my first time ever seeing Gladiator. I had heard of it before, but I had never had any interest in watching it until Gladiator 2 was starting to come out. And so, yeah. So, we're gonna get into, like, the big moments of this movie and some of the scenes that hit hard. And of course, one of the famous lines that was actually, if I remember correctly, was improv. Are you not entertained? That scene was absolutely insane, and I absolutely love that scene. And then, of course, later on you have the scene where Maximus reveals his identity to Commodus, and then Commodus' eyes just goes wide, and like he's in utter shock. He's like, "Wait a minute, you're supposed to be dead. I was told you were dead," but obviously he is not dead. And then, of course, the wheat field dream sequences are also a important part in this, because that is part of Maximus's afterlife. because that is his farm. That's what he wanted to do. He wanted to go home and harvest his crops. He even says that to his men before they go into the very first battle at the beginning of the movie. He's like, in a few weeks' time, I'm going to go home and I'm going to harvest my crops, or something like that. And it was a big thing. And then, of course, at the end of the movie, after everything had settled down, you also have Juba burying the little figurines that Maximus had always prayed with, for that were little figures of his wife and his son, and he buries them there in the Colosseum as well. And then you also have Lucilla's quiet rebellion. It's like she slowly it's like after. I think it's like after Maximus revealed himself that she was like, okay, then something can finally be done. Since I know Maximus is alive, something can be done, because I know Maximus is a man of action and will get it done if asked to do so. So I think that's where Lucilla is like, okay, now is the time. Now is the time to rebel. Now is the time to take him down. Now is the time to actually do something. And yeah, they did not play around with these scenes. These actors and actresses did an amazing job in this movie, and they were not playing around. And yeah, so I think Russell Crowe earned every ounce of that Oscar that he had gotten for this movie. And Joaquin Phoenix is certainly unhinged in this movie in one of the best ways possible. Because, again, I wanted to watch Commodus die throughout the entire movie. I was like, please, somebody kill him. Please. Somebody end everybody else's suffering. Because, and even my suffering. Somebody end my, like, he just, like, it was just, like, yeah. And then, and I loved Russell's physicality and his physicality and his emotional control. It's like, yes, he could tear you apart, but at the same time, he is a man of principle. He is a man that feels emotions. He is a man that knows what it's like to lose something so close. He is a man in grief. And I think he, like, as I've mentioned, I do believe he lets his grief drive him, which is why he is so driven throughout the rest of this movie. And then you have Connie Nielsen as Lucilla. Oh, goodness. She had the most quietest strength. Like, she was certainly a silent warrior, I would like to say. She is definitely a silent warrior, and even going into Gladiator 2, she is still, again, a silent warrior, which ultimately ends up killing her. And, she does an amazingly powerful job, and I'm glad she had gotten this part all of those years ago and was able to play this part again last year. And then you have the man that plays Juba, who is like another brother to Maximus and became an absolutely cherished friend to Maximus and was there by his side there to the very end. And it was certainly an amazing connection because it's two men from two different places in life, and yet they were brought to this certain point in time together, and it's an absolutely amazing performance. And you know, sometimes 2000 era epics can feel dated, but I don't think this one does. I think this movie certainly holds up to the hype it had back then. Like, this movie is an absolute epic, and this movie I think will hold up for years to come. I mean, if it could hold up for this past 25 years, I'm sure it'll hold up even longer. I mean, of course, the CGI doesn't really hold up, but I also think in some spots, as far as the tigers go, they look absolutely real. I'm sure they used real tigers, but the tigers were kind of I'm sure the tigers were trained. I honestly don't think they skimped on the tigers for that fight. But as far as that goes, I think him killing the tiger was CGI, but it honestly didn't look that bad. Even for today's standards, I don't think that scene looked that bad or horrendous. But yeah, most of the CGI in this movie, from what I could see, still definitely holds up today. Which, of course, there was the two scenes. There was the one where Maximus is laying in the cart, and after the people had snatched him up to take him to the slave camp, and he's laying there, and the rocks are like passing by his head, like behind his head, and then it shows that again after the Colosseum and the floors going past his head. I think that's kind of weird looking, but other than that, I think the CGI holds up quite a bit, and the emotional impact of this movie, I think, still lands to this day. Like, you still feel all of that, and it's nuts how much emotion that was put in this. Like, even the performances that were fairly minor, like the what's his name, Maximus's second helper with like the scars on his cheeks. I want to say Cicero, but I don't think that's his name. It starts with a C. I know that. Even he brought something to the story that was incredible. And what's another one? Even the man that played Marcus Aurelius. I mean, which I didn't look this up, but I'm pretty sure that's the same man that plays Dumbledore in like the first and second Harry Potter movie. Because his voice just seems so familiar that I'm pretty sure that's who that is. I don't know. I would have to look that up, but I'm pretty sure that's who that is. And again, I was very impressed with that performance. Which everybody in this movie did an amazing job. Even the background people that, like, they made it feel so real. They made the story come to life, and it was absolutely breathtaking. And if you have not seen this movie, I highly recommend you watch it at least once. I would say it would be the best 2.5 hours of your life for a first time watch. As for a third time watch, I'm gonna be real with you, I fell asleep at some point, and I woke up, and I was like, crap. But, honestly, this is my third time watching it. I watched it really closely the first 2 times that I watched this. I watched it really closely so that way I could get, like, any Easter eggs that were in the second movie that was made last year. So, I remember the movie fairly well. So, at the end of the day, Gladiator isn't necessarily about death. It's about memory and being remembered as a good man, even when everything is taken from you. It means doing the right thing at the end of the day. It's like, sure, you might, like, Maximus, of course, turned down that and was a little selfish in doing so he could go back to his wife and kid. But, of course, you see what that got him, and he was like, okay, if this is the last thing that I need to fulfill before I go home. That was the last thing he had to fulfill before he went home. Oh, I just made that connection. Holy cow. I just made that connection. Because Marcus was like, okay, this is the last thing I will ask of you before I will let you go home. And after that point, Marcus is betrayed by Commodus and gets killed. And then they try to kill, and then he tries to have Maximus killed, and then of course ultimately his wife and kid is taken from him because he needed to do that one thing before he could go home, which is why it was taken from him in the first place, because he had to do that. That was the thing he had to do. It was like, yeah. You guys get what I'm saying. I just made that connection. Holy cow. But here's my thing I want to ask you guys. What scene stuck with you the most? Was it the speeches, the revenge, the grief? What do you guys think? And let me know. I really want to know how some of you felt about Commodus, because I'm still hung up on that. I just wanted him to die the entire time. I just wanted him gone. From the get-go. I wanted him gone. Gone. That's all for today's episode of Popcorn Unscripted.
Thanks so much for tuning in.
If you enjoyed the conversation, be sure to follow us on Twitter and Instagram at PopUnscripted, then Popcorn Cinema on Facebook.
And let us know your thoughts or any suggestions for future episodes. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out any future episodes. We upload every Wednesday and Saturday.
If you'd like to send us a message or subscribe for bonus content, check out the links in the description.
Your support means a lot and helps keep the conversation going.
If you enjoyed the episode, don't forget to leave us a review. It helps us out a ton, and we love hearing your thoughts.
Until next time, keep your popcorn close
and your movie critiques closer.
Thanks for listening to Popcorn Unscripted.